Years and years ago, I had companies call me and they said, hey, we've got a biological product. We'd like you to try it out. You know, it'll add 10 bushels. Next company called me, hey, ours adds 7 bushels. I figured up if I went around the farm show and got every one of those biologicals, we should have been making like 800 bushel corn. We have had biologicals that we have gotten from companies, and their biologicals sometimes were 7, 10, 15 bushels less to the acre than where we didn't use it. If a company tries to sell you a biological and it has trichoderma bacteria, just know that's the most prevalent bacteria on earth. You don't need any more of it. We do this every year. We've talked about check strips. We've got check strips, we've got Pivot Bio minus the 40 pounds of nitrogen. We've got Pivot Bio with the normal rate of nitrogen. We've got organics. We've got fish shit, we've got in-soil algae, we've got another check strip, and then we added Soil Revive, which is a concept product. The farm average, it was not the greatest year, but the farm average for this farm was 188.53 bushels. So where we used Pivot Bio and we cut back on 40 pounds of nitrogen, we lost 2.2 bushels. But because we cut back on nitrogen, which last year, I think our nitrogen was a hair over $1 a pound. I mean, it was pretty pricey. We had a positive response where we used the full Pivot Bio. We actually had a negative, Pivot Bio with full nitrogen. We made 8 more bushels, but we lost $38 an acre. These are things that you need to be doing on your trials. I'll tell you right now, on this field, for us to flush the planter, apply the products, come back, flush the planter, pull the tissues, pull the Haneys, pull the yield. And not only did we use the yield monitor, but we had a weigh wagon. We probably had 40 or 50 more hours of work on this one farm. But at the end of the day, this one farm is what told me for this year, like fish shit is another one that we tried this year. We've had in-soil for, I think this is our 3rd year. And it got more acres and organics did. And then like this year, like Dawn and Grant, they mixed in-soil algae with fish shit. I mixed organics with in-soil algae. I'm gonna do like Dawn and Grant and mix these two next year. But we take this all the way to yield and we look at what did that product cost? Did we make more yield? Did we make less yield? Did it actually make us more or less money? And so you can set this up and do this fairly easy. One of the things that we did start doing 2 years ago is working with a company called Rise Bio. We've had BioMakers has had the bee crop. We've ran it a few times. It was hard for me to get a management decision off of it. And to me, if we're not getting a management decision, then why are we testing? Rise Bio called us. How many of you in here use biological products? Now, I'm gonna pick on y'all for a minute. When you bought a biological product, did you know how well it was going to work in your soils before you applied it? If you're trying a new biological and you go buy it, do you know if it works or not? Okay, that's the point. We're buying all these products. How much, you don't have to tell me who it was, but how much did your biological product cost? On an acre, how much? Rough numbers. Oh, okay. Well, let's just talk about them. Some of these biological products cost $5. Some of them are 10. There are biological products out there that they're charging $25 and $30 an acre for. All right. What I can do now is I can pull my soil and send them my actual seed that I'm going to plant in that soil and that biological product, and they run a test in the laboratory to see all of these and more. These are just the ones that we pay attention to the most. But what are these biologicals doing? Are they building more nitrogen? Are we losing more nitrogen? Did we stop nitrogen denitrification? How much nitrogen fixation, phosphorus cycling? Polymer degradation is residue breakdown. So like that's one of the things that we're looking at on our farm is how are we cycling that residue? It's like David said, if you have cover crop residue or corn residue from 5 years ago, you have a problem. You need more biologicals. Are we seeing drought resistance, nutrient cycling, community structure? how many observed species are we seeing? Now this test cost me $200, but I run it from, anytime after harvest all the way up until about February to give them enough time to run this test in the laboratory. But the cool thing is last year, and we're hoping this year, we haven't harvested yet, but how these were actually ranked was within 5% correlated to how they yielded there. So how we saw these different yields across these different plots related back to this within 95%. That's pretty big. So that means now that I can run this test and actually know before I spend, think about it, $200, say the biological costs $10 an acre. That's only 20 acres of that product that it's going to take me to run this test and see, am I going to see a benefit from these biologicals? And so we've done it on in-soil, we've done it on fish shit, we've done it on in-soil with Tucker and Meredith. I don't know, there's probably about 10 or 12 other ones that we decided not to use because the ones that we have seen work and correlate back to this return on investment, they didn't have scores that were anywhere near what we were seeing out of these other products. So this is a way for us to make another management decision before we buy a product and spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Are you sure you want to be a part of this? You don't even know what this is, do you? Oh boy. How many of you in here were told that chemicals were bad for soil biology? At some point. How many of you in here were told that if you use chemistry that it would nuke the soil and sterilize it for years and generations? I know there's at least a couple. I wanted to test this on my own farm. I got tired of being I got browbeat on social media, at conferences. Russell, why aren't you organic? Why don't you farm without chemistry? A couple tillage passes aren't that bad. So we set it up. Here they are. No till with no chemical. No till with chemical. This is one disc pass, 2 inches deep. Just 2 inches of soil disturbance. Then we had, this is disc with no chemical and disc with chemical. These are triple replicated plots that are actually under more rigorous standards than the university plots that you see across this country. Here's how it was set up. You can see where we've got disc with no chemical, disc with chemical, no till, no chemical, and no till with chemical. So the first thing we looked at is denitrification. So I'm just asking for your involvement to make sure you're awake after lunch. How many acres do you think are farmed corn and beans in the United States that have tillage and chemistry? What percentage? Just a guess. 99%, 95, 90. We would all say that there are a boatload of acres that see some form of tillage and chemistry, correct? All right. What have we talked about on the row crop side for the last 2 days that corn needs to grow? Nitrogen, right? And we have to apply nitrogen. If you're using chemistry, so this is chemicals, no chemicals. The red is where we disked, the blue is no-till. 88 pounds of nitrogen was lost where we disked and used chemistry. Think about that. 90 million acres of corn. I know that's not exactly 100% right, but let's call it 90 million acres of corn, and 90% of that with disking or tillage and chemistry lost 88 pounds of nitrogen. That's 2 inches deep. That ain't nothing. That ain't a tillage pass. I mean, realistically, that's a vertical tillage pass with a disc. We scratch the surface. But where does most of our biology live? The top 3 inches. So I just destroyed 2/3 of their home. But we saw, and like David said, you till that ground, what do you introduce? Oxygen. Oxygen helps breed what? More bacteria. Bacteria cycle our nitrogen. You create a system that cycles nitrogen so fast that the plants can't take it up, and it goes down or up depending on how the weather is. But look right here, no-till with chemistry, we were just a hair over 60 pounds of nitrogen loss. I mean, that's still bad to me. I mean, this right here is how I farm. And 60 pounds of nitrogen loss is still not the best. I want to see that go down. But look, we go from 60 down to 50 with no-till and no chemicals. So there's not a huge difference between me applying chemistry and me not applying chemistry in my no-till. They're a lot tighter. And when I say applying chemistry, this isn't Russell Hedrick's chemistry. They wanted me to do the North Carolina standard. There were 1.6 gallons of chemistry applied to this field in 2 passes. That's a lot. And I think that's what pushed this number up even higher than what it could have been. We're running it this year where we're doing another one of these, and we're going to look at my chemistry versus the grower standard. And we're still losing 55 pounds where we had tillage and no chemistry. So that's organic. That right there is the organic standard. A little bit of tillage, no chemistry. It's not any better.
Hey Russell?
Yep.
How are you measuring the nitrogen loss? Is that like through the water or is that in just straight soil test?
If you call the laboratory, I'm sure they'll be able to tell you. I'm a farmer, not a lab technician.
History on that piece of ground, was it no-till for years or how?
That's my best field. That was up until that point was 10 years no-till, cover crops, livestock, compost. I mean, that's top of the mark.
Yeah.
Let's look at nitrogen fixation. Now, where we had chemistry and no-till, nitrogen fixation in that corn crop was only about 5 pounds. Now, we did see higher nitrogen fixation here from about 20 to 25 pounds. The no chemistry over here, they were pretty similar on these 2 plots. The tillage we saw just a hair more, but that's still not a lot. Remember, we lost 90 pounds here and we only made 20 pounds. But this is going to be the real shocker. Organic nitrogen breakdown. So where we see microbes, you remember that Haney test had an organic nitrogen reserve and an organic nitrogen release? Just because you have the nitrogen doesn't mean it's been released to the plant. Look at the difference here. Where we had no-till and no chemistry, our organic nitrogen breakdown and release to the plant was 120 pounds to 144 pounds. Where we disked it, it was on the very bottom of that at 120. So anytime just running 2 inches here, we were losing the ability to get nitrogen into the plant. No-till with chemistry was about 110 to 140. Those are pretty close. Well, if this is pretty close to this, is chemistry affecting that? Like, do y'all understand what I'm getting at here? We applied 1.6 pounds or 1.6 gallons of chemistry here, and these two are relatively the same. So did chemistry affect the soil's ability to release that nitrogen? No. But what did it do where we had tillage and chemistry? It's on the very bottom and drops. 2 inches of soil disturbance and a 40-pound difference right there. And that's just one pass. How many passes do farmers, what did you call that earlier? When you dry out the soil in inland? Power dry. We power dry the soil. We just keep making tillage passes until the soil's dry. So how many passes is that normally? 3, 5, 4? So think about that. That's a compounding effect. This is one pass. What would that look like if we made 4 passes? What if we did field cultivation and made 7 or 8 tillage passes like we see in some organic fields? I'm just tired of being browbeat that I need to be organic, because this right here, these metagenomics are showing me. And if you are organic, I'm not browbeating you. You do what you want to do. I'm just tired of everybody telling me that it's better than how I farm. Look at our fungal to bacteria ratios. No-till with no chemicals, no-till with chemicals. Look how close those are and look how tight that band is. We saw less changes in the microbial families where we used chemistry or no chemistry and no-till, but look how big of a skew that is compared to the no-till beside of it. Look how we're skewing that population of fungal to bacteria ratios, disturbing that soil only 2 inches deep. I want the blue, not the red. And don't take metagenomics. We verified this with 3 different tests. We did Haney PLFA and we did the metagenomics. This right here is our PLFA results and our Haney's. So we pulled a sample to set the baseline. 227, 150 on MAC, carbon to nitrogen ratio. No-till, no chemicals. Look at that. No-till, no chemicals doubled in CO2 respiration. Well, let's just look at disc no chemical. Disc no chemical was actually just a hair better, but it still wasn't better than no-till with no chemicals. Look at no-till with chemicals. Almost the same as organic, which would be disc no chemical. There's only, on this CO2 respiration, there's only 8 parts per million difference between no-till with chemical and disc no chemical. And the one that did the worst was the same result, disc with chemical, was actually the only plot on the Haney test that showed worse results than our baseline set before we did these practices. And then we look at, living microbial pools. Same thing, no-till, no chemical was the best. Disc chemical, disc no chemical, and no-till. I mean, these are 3 tests that showed the same things all the way through. So this is how we do it. We send it into the lab. We send them our soil sample, 6 inches deep, send them our seed, and send them any biological product that we want to test. It takes them about a month to turn it around. So just understand, if you're going to want to test biologicals that you're going to use in furrow at planting, you can't be doing that in March. You need to be doing that December, January, February, and they'll actually be running these tests for you in the laboratory to see, what are we going to see from this treatment on the plant, and is it worth buying that from the person and using it on the farm? So like I said, that's probably the most controversial thing I've probably put out there in a while. Okay, so talking about different forms of biology. I try not to really ever knock on people if their stuff doesn't work on my farm, because every acre is different across the United States. I'll just tell you whether it worked on mine or not. I did not see a return on Pivot Bio that was worth me spending $27 to $30 an acre on it. We used it across multiple farms and we just didn't see the results. I also have friends that use it and swear by it and absolutely love it. And that's why I'm not knocking on them. But Pivot Bio said that they built nitrogen. The problem is I had a Haney test that showed 43 pounds of nitrogen on it, and I put Pivot Bio out there and I didn't see any additional bushels other than calculating in for those 40 pounds that we saw on the Haney test. We didn't see anything built off of it. Then we look at Organics. Organics has fungi, bacteria, protozoa, and beneficial nematodes in it at specific ratios, and it's not proprietary. They'll tell you if you ask them. I'm lacking when we look at our PLFA results. I see biologicals go up. I see bacteria go up. I see fungi go up. I don't see a lot of protozoas, but we do see protozoa in their product, and therefore I think we're getting a benefit. Then we look at products like Tucker's. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I call your product a biological enhancer. That's what I think in-soil algae is. I've seen, the studies that they've done where we actually see the bacteria go in the algae and rapidly multiply and be able to connect to more nutrients and then carry those into the plant roots. And so if I'm trying to enhance microbial communities for nutrient cycling, I use products like algae. And now I'm looking at things like this year, the study I said we were doing, it's a little bit different than Grant and Dawn, but I've got a biological product like Organics and I'm mixing it with in-soil algae to see if those two have synergy and rapidly ramp up what that biological process is. And like they did fish shit and in-soil, I'm going to do that next year and see if that has a benefit. So there's a bunch of different biologicals out there, and like I said before, the ones that are on your screen, all of these except for one product, we continue to see a benefit of using. And I don't know where the plateau is going to be. It may be 4 years from now, or it may be 40 years from now that we ever see that biological function plateau and we don't see these bigger return on investments.
Was this put in furrow with planter?
Yeah, these are in furrows. But I think that, hell, I don't know, maybe 3 years from now I might come back and tell you that I blended all 3 of these together and that was better than the pair of the 2 of them. I don't know. I think there's There's so much that happens in the soil function and inside the biological function that we probably don't even understand 1% of it. And that's why we do this, just to figure out how we can keep pushing that to the next level and pushing it to the next level and do it economically. If I would have done this on this whole farm here, on these other fields, and all of the corn died, I would still be financially stable to farm the next year. And that's what we do. We push things like the PGRs, and we talked about that chlormequat chloride. I've never used it before. It got put on 30 feet wide pass on a field. Because if I killed those 30 foot of beans, who cares? Go plant a cover crop earlier. We learned a valuable lesson. We did some plots this year that we did 100%, 75, 50%, and 25% of what the fertility of the Haney test was. And we've got Tucker's algae, we've got fish shit, we've got organics, we've got a new product called elm dirt, and we've got them all in those fields in, let's see, 15, they're 45 feet wide. They're 45 feet wide, all the way across the field. And so that way we can look and harvest that data and see maybe we can push fertility back another 10%. I've always been skeptical of that because compared to 12 years ago, I've already cut fertility back probably 30 or 40% on average. And will the biologicals allow me to do that? And once again, putting algae, on a 45-foot plot and cutting back on fertility back to 25%, well, if I lose, 6 rows of corn at 25% fertility, say it loses 10, 20 bushels, I'm still going to have enough money to farm next year. It's not going to hurt my operation to collect this data. So I think that's what farmers need to do on their own operations. If they're using these products, cut some fertility back and see if that enhances the yield or how the ROI turns out. And fertilizer ain't going down. Y'all were talking about it the other day. I was laughing. We were laughing at you a little bit back here in the back because you were talking about phosphorus up there at the farm, and I kept wanting to say China. Yeah, China. I mean, 52% of our phosphorus comes from China right now. You want to know why that phosphorus spiked up during COVID? It's because China said they ran out of energy. They didn't have enough energy to mine the phosphorus and send it to the U.S., and we lost 52% of our supply. Do you know where the largest phosphorus mine is in North America? It's going to surprise you. Do you know where it is? Aurora, North Carolina. Nutrien bought it 5-6 years ago, but that is the largest phosphorus deposit left in the United States, and it's junk. It's really not even a good grade, but they mine it out, make it into DAP, turns into liquid soup, and they send it to the co-ops. But that's where our largest deposit is right now. Who's the only other person in the world that has enough phosphorus supply to supply the United States if it's not from the United States and if it's not from China? Does anybody have an idea what country that is? Morocco. Y'all know anything about Morocco? It ain't heaven on earth. They ain't friends with us. Do you think they're going to do anything to help the American farmer? No. So right now, we've got 20, 25 years left at current rate for U.S. domestic supply. That's my lifetime. If I live long enough. Maybe Heather kills me before then, but I don't know. But if I farm another 30 years, we might be fully dependent on China and Morocco for 90% instead of 52% of the phosphorus supply here in the U.S.
Is your answer to that to have a biology that soluble out what you got?
Well, it goes back to that TND I showed yesterday. 1,500 pounds of phosphorus in the top 6 inches, another 1,000 pounds in the 6 to 12 sample. How do we unlock that? The problem is if your soils are not aggregated and you're not getting water and airflow down deeper, you can't get biology to those levels. That's where the soil aggregation and the soil health principles, I think, drive biology deeper. Liz helped me put it together 2 years ago. We sampled 2-inch increments down to 2 feet. Where do y'all think biology stops? Like, if we're at 100% biology in the top 2 inches, where do you think you see a big dip? The next 2 inches. We know that predominantly most of that biology is living in the top 2 to 3 inches. And that brings in a whole nother thing. There's this new term going around called rotational tillage. that I'm only going to till all my acres before corn or before sorghum, but I don't till before beans, so I'm still a no-till farmer. They're full of shit. If you are using rotational tillage, I've even heard somebody say that you can till 6 inches deep. I mean, just till the piss out of it. And then if you plant back within 24 hours, they say that the biology will come up from 6 inches deep and reorganize and recolonize, and it'll be just as good as it was. They're also full of shit. And that's the controversial part. I'm sorry, I'll say it. Call people out. If somebody says something stupid, tell them they're dumb. We put warning labels on too many things and took natural selection out, and here we are in 2024 and what our country's like.
There's a lot of broad statements out there.
But my point is they make all these statements and they say it's their opinions, and I'm literally giving you triple replicated plots with scientific data through 3 tests that say that they're full of crap. And I say that science and running these tests are a lot better than somebody's opinion. So don't get wrangled into being, I was like them when I first started down this journey and I heard somebody get up here and give the, evangelistic speech of soil health. I was a purist. Hell yeah, let's give up chemicals and fertilizer. But at the same time, is that really what's best for the farm? Probably not. You should probably be able to wean it off, use less, use only what's needed, maximize your return on your investment. I work 20 hours a day. I get stiff and sore being at these field days because my body's not used to standing still this long. And if I'm going to go to the farm and work 20 hours a day or until 3, 4 in the morning, I want to make money farming. I've had farmers tell me that they're lucky if they make $20 to $40 an acre profit. I'd quit for that. It's too much work. It's hard on your body. Do these tests on your own farm. You don't have to do them to my size and scope of what we do, but start small, pick something out and try something new and take it all the way to harvest and see, did I like doing this? Was it easier on me and did it make us more money? That's the way you do it.
Let me ask you something. So we're talking about phosphorus there. Can you ever run your soil test down below 1 part per million?
Actually, no, because legally the lab can't put a 0 on your test.
There's that answer.
I pulled a soil sample, sent it to the lab. It had 1 part per million from Lance. And I called him and I said, how does this happen? And he said, well, technically it was a point something, but legally we have to put at least a 1 because you may have missed at least a pound when you sampled it. But
there's that big reserve, like you're talking in the TND. So when you listen to, the conventional ag, like, you're going to mine out your soils.
no.
You never will. And Buzz Clute, he did a deal, was that in North Carolina or
South Carolina.
South Carolina. And you can look it up on YouTube, how much fertilizer do you really need, and looking at his diverse rotation in there, actually saw levels go up.
Well, not only that, but like potassium. I think they've gone either 9 or 10 years now on that particular research plot. And the plots where they have not applied potassium have still yielded as good as where they didn't. And the numbers have not decreased in 10 years. Which is crazy because that's all I heard is, hey, if you're doing these cover crops and you're reducing nutrients, you're going to mine your soil. Now, if you're yielding really good, can you pull down the availability? Absolutely. But that just means that you either have to get biology or you have to apply fertilizer to either unlock those nutrients in that TND like you're talking about, or you have biology that releases some of that legacy, part of that TND, back into that void. Is that,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, take this, what I'm getting ready to say, understand and listen to the whole process. I have 15,000 pounds of potassium in the top acre foot on what I showed you in that TND. Once again, that's not all plant available right now. But if you look at 200 bushel corn, you're going to remove about 50 pounds a year. Would you agree? Roughly 0.4 per bushel. Okay, 15,000 divided by 50 is 300. I don't have to unlock that whole 15 pounds this year, that whole 15,000 pounds. I don't have to unlock it this year. If I grow a 200 bushel crop and harvest the grain off of it, I'm essentially removing 50 pounds. That means that my biology has to put back 50 pounds out of that 15,000 for me to maintain the level that I'm at. And that gives me 300 years of that before effectively that soil would technically be called mined. But that doesn't include what's below the foot. I mean, we know that there's nutrients down there. They're just not plain available. And why do we see nutrients? The deeper we take our soil samples and our Haney test, why do we see nutrient levels go down? Does that mean nutrients aren't there? It means there's not biology there to unlock it. So what if I pull, I might do this, what if I pull a 12-inch to 24-inch TND? I wonder how much would reflect of how much potassium's in the top foot and potassium in the bottom foot. And the only problem is I don't have biology down to that 2-foot level to unlock that TND nutrient. But can we? Absolutely. Dr. Caligari down in Brazil. How many of you in here do cover crops? Do you till at all?
Well, strip tilling.
Okay, you strip till. How many years you been doing cover crops?
4 or 5.
4 or 5 years. Have you ever dug with a shovel to see how deep your soil aggregation is?
Yeah.
How deep do you think it is? A couple inches?
Yeah, 6.
6 inches?
6 maybe.
That's pretty close. You go to a farm and we talk about what are the benefits of soil health. A farm goes to no-till and say they have a cover crop. In 1 year they should have 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch of aggregation. Do you think that's a benefit? We typically see, depending on climate, north to south, tropical is even better, but we see 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch of soil aggregation every single year. Dr. Caligari down in Brazil has been doing this for like 45, 46 years. I may be off by a year or two there. My point being is they have soil aggregation down to 50 some inches now. Now, if he's got soil aggregation down to 50 some inches, you should see the root pit. You can Google it. They show his root pit. It's absolutely insane. But if you have soil aggregation down to 50 inches and now we have water infiltration, we have air infiltration, and we have everything to sustain biological life, do you think that his has more biological activity at 50 inches than mine does at, say, 12? Because I've been doing it for 12 years. Absolutely. So how do we unlock those nutrients? Long-term soil health practices build soil down. And that's how we get away from worrying about what's going to happen in 20 to 25 years when we don't see domestic use. The problem is if you started today and you did everything right, you're still only probably going to be 24 to 30 inches deep of aggregation if you did it right until we run out of that phosphorus supply domestically. So if we run out of it, 20 years from now we run out of it, and then you decide to start it, do you think that that's going to be a benefit? That land is going to suffer for a very, very long time.
And an aggregate only lasts about 28 days.
So you got to keep rebuilding it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to have something there to keep it going, keep it going.
So I say some controversial stuff, but I just tell you what the truth is and what I see on my farm. So any other?
Here's another thing real quick. You guys, I know you got a couple here that are using biologicals. How many of you guys have had somebody pull up to the farm and try to sell you, or at the co-op?
That probably is everybody.
Pulled up to farms.
Yeah.
Tucker's one of them friendly biological dealers.
I come in peace, I have hats. So when you're looking at a label for that product, it's going to list the microbes that are in there, right? And there might be usually 5 or 6 different strands of microbes. And it'll say whatever, some
10 to the 9th power. And
yeah, it'll say some blah, 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 I can't pronounce it. And it'll say like 5.5 times 10 to the 9th, or 10 to the 8th, or 10 to the 12th. That means let's say it's 5.5, so you got 5, 5, and 10 zeros. So it's 10 times 10 to the 10th power, right? Behind it. That means there's that many of those colonizing forming unit microbes per milliliter in there, depending on it's milliliter, liter, or however they have it on the label. There are some companies out here that might have as much as 12 of those microbes in there, but it's like times 10 to the 5th. Like it's nothing.
It's probably got less biology in it than a spoonful of dirt.
Yeah. You're buying very expensive humic acid
With water.
with water.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question, kind of going back to your kind of tillage discussion there. So if I want to get, in my case, chicken litter, from the local chicken barn, the state has a regulation that has to get worked in. So the only tillage I do on my farm is strip till, and then when I get chicken litter, and I basically run that disc. So it creates a groove on the surface of the soil, so I could say I did tillage. But I mean, in some places I'm going a couple inches deep. But if I put a cover crop on that, the end of August, grow through that, and by the time you plant corn the next year, you probably built a lot of that back, haven't you, from maybe cutting up that top couple inches.
Yeah, I mean, I think biology is resilient. If you're making a single pass like that, I think that you'll see it functioning back to where it was. If you're going deeper or you're making, I mean, it's the same as rotational grazing, time and intensity. So, you know, different, that's why strip till is better than, you know, full width tillage. We burn biology and organic matter 368 days a year. And they're asleep.
And there's 32 hours in a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
True. Right.
So what's the state regulation on compost?
I don't know.
You should find out. Top 5 chicken producing counties in North Carolina. Here's Hickory, and there's the 5. I'm in the top 5 chicken producing counties. We get chicken, like I think we pay $10 a ton for litter. They can't give that stuff away. We got to the point, if you want to hear about it, I'll tell you. This came from part of David Brandt, and this came from the Australians. You want to learn about compost? Find an Australian. They're 50 years ahead of us. David Brandt was taking 1 ton of chicken litter. You have to use hardwood chips. Softwood breaks down too fast, but you take hardwood chips at 200 pounds and put that per ton of chicken litter. Run that through the compost process. Once you go through your heat cycle, this is the part we got from the Australians. Go out here. Y'all don't really have a lot of trees, but find one maybe. You might have to drive a distance. But around a tree, are we fungal or bacteria dominant? Or fungal dominant. You go 2 inches deep. Once again, there we are talking about it again. 2 inches deep, 1 loader bucket, fill it up with your native biology and inoculate that compost. Wait 2 months and put that out on your ground. You will see CO2 burst on Haney test, percent MAC, water extractable organic carbon, and PLFA numbers absolutely skyrocket. We've been doing that now for 7 years. I literally get 200 tons of chicken litter. We get hardwood chips from a local guy that cuts up trees. He brings them in. I get those for free. I don't have one of those fancy turners for the compost. I have a loader bucket and an excavator. We turn that stuff around. We flip it upside down. We make it back into a row. Once it goes through the heat process, add that microbial community from our local soils, let that build in there, and then apply that to the ground. Night and day difference if you're trying to build biological process. So if you can get, I didn't know y'all got chicken litter up here most, but I figured y'all were hogs and dairy for the most part, or livestock. But if you can get chicken litter, that ratio of that nitrogen in the litter breaking down those wood chips is almost absolutely perfect.
And what's your rate on that? You're 200 pounds, 500 pounds?
If it's really, really dead dirt, first year it'll get 1,000 pounds to the acre. Every 3rd year after that, we're typically, I mean, it's hard to get them spreader trucks calibrated. Best we can tell, 500 to 700 pounds every 3rd year. And every time we apply that, we just see numbers continually start to stack up. So the question is on like doing strip tillage, say you're on 30-inch centers, and then the next year you're splitting that 30, going back to beans and strip till. I think as long as you get outside of the root ball, which can cause some planting issues and planter bounce, then you're fine. I mean, if we're making an 8-inch strip, if we're moving over 10 inches instead of 15 inches, I don't think that really changes up a lot, but it at least gives you the option. Say if you go over and you're putting your row on 10 inches, you've still got another 10 before you're getting back. If you're able to do that, yeah, I mean, it depends on the strip till that you're using. Like some of the older strip tills, I guess maybe like a Rawson concept where you had 3 different discs and you're really getting aggressive with it. That's probably going to be different than some of the modern ones that are essentially running a single no-till culture with a row cleaner and 2 discs in the back and a rolling basket. And I think that that's still going to be better than probably if you're running a mole knife and you're really lifting up and fracturing a lot of that ground. I mean, if you see a strip till running and they're slinging dirt 10 feet up in the air, that's pretty daggum aggressive. Or if it's a row freshener. We've got guys in my area that aren't really using a mole knife. They're just making a row freshener to really work on that top maybe 2-3 inches to just make a better seed bed if they need it. And that's probably better than the other option.